Hey everybody, it's Doug here, Doug Mystic on Board Game Geek, bringing you another playthrough of a new game called Legends of the American Frontier. And this one, man, has quite a story behind it. So this was one of the first games, well, not one of the first, but one of the earlier games that I kickstarted when I started getting into my Kickstarter bad habit that I got into. And it was a game that was designed by one of my favorite designers, Richard Lanius, who, if you follow the types of games I play and some of the other guys like me that do a lot of playthroughs, you know, he designed Arkham Horror, and he also designed Run, Fight, or Die, and a whole bunch of other games. I mean, you just a massive amount of fantastic games. You know, Defenders of the Realm, one of my favorites. He's got another post-apocalyptic Defenders of the Realm type game coming out, which is pretty cool. You know, Eldritch Horror, a lot of the Arkham Horror type stuff. Anyway, one of my favorite designers. And so when I saw this game pop up, I immediately jumped on it because it was one of his games, and he usually has some really good storytelling elements in it. And I don't think this one's any different, though this will be my blind first playthrough of the game. I have read the rules, and I have studied them a couple times. There's really nothing to watch on this or nothing to see because it didn't get a lot of fanfare, and it funded, but it didn't fund like exceptionally well, which is surprising, being the game designer who it is. That could be because of the people who put it out. It was Game Solute, and I know that a lot of people are challenged by some of their Kickstarters, and as was the case with this one, that it took forever. Now, they made right by it and added a couple of expansions in, which I will not be using in this session, just because this is going to be a playthrough of the basic game. But it took forever to get here. I had literally just written it off and forgotten about it, and then it arrived, and here we are. So it's got really fantastic artwork, and I love the theme of building a legacy or a legend of yourself as an American frontiersman. And there's many different things you can do. It's a simple, it's not a really very difficult game. It's fairly simple and straightforward. It's got a great player aid with it, which I'll show you right now. Basically goes over the state of play and how to do a solo adventure and a group adventure. It is not a solo game. It is not a cooperative game. It is semi-cooperative in the sense that you can get your heroes together and do some adventures that require more than one individual to complete. But outside of that, and then still there's a competitive aspect to it because the ones that get the most, that do the best on it, get the best rewards, which we'll talk about as we go. And basically, this game has a really interesting startup and setup, and we're going to get into that first. We're going to play a 4-player game. Sorry, bumped the camera. We're going to play a 4-player game where we have a set of characters, and I'll go over those with you. They got really neat character boards with cool dials on them that set the skills. But it's how you get your skills to start and everything like that, which makes it really interesting, which is this upbringing stage. And essentially, it sets the stage for your future, and it's how you were raised and the legends that kicked off your life. It's pretty interesting. And then after you do that, the meat of the game is going to be in this adventuring phase here. Then we go into the legend stage at the end of the game, and then final scoring. And this is really the biggest piece of it. And once we've completed this, we'll end up in the end of the game. So I don't know if I'm going to do a full playthrough of this. I'm going to try and see how it goes, and if you like it, I'll keep going. Now I'm going to talk about components and that for a minute, just because I want to show you something. And I don't recommend games. I don't do reviews. I do playthroughs, and I usually only do playthroughs of games that I like. But I do think it's worth noting that I don't know where you can see it, but the components, the board itself is great, and the player boards are great, but the cards are really flimsy, and they're all warping. Here, let me show you this stack here. And I shuffled them as nicely as I could, but they're clearly going to need sleeves. I can't tell if you can see. See how they're bending? They're all doing that, and that's unfortunate. But it does have some good components, like these metal these metal grit coins that came with the Kickstarter, and then all the tokens. They're fine. They're typical. They're kind of thin. They're typical quality. They remind me of the quality of the first version of Dominant Species, the tokens, because they're about the same size and everything. But then Dominant Species did their second edition and came out with much thicker tokens. The player tokens, you can see they're okay, and this is the first player token. But anyway, we are going to get started with the upbringing phase, and I'm going to go over the characters and how we create them and create their lives, and it's pretty interesting how this plays out. So we'll get started with that. You can see in here that we're going to shuffle and deal 5 upbringing cards to each player. It's kind of like a drafting scenario where we draft our, sorry, didn't have it on screen, where we draft our history. And it says, take 1 card and pass the remaining card to the left. Repeat until you have 4 cards. Just discard the last one. And then you splay the cards based on, and you'll see how that works, because it tells a story of your life as you splay the cards out. And then it also increases and changes your skills and gives you some starting special tokens and things of that nature. And then we're going to get some skill cards to play the game, and then we're going to start our adventuring phase. Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. So just to get started, though, every player does get 1 of these. So we're going to add those to our pool. And let's go take a look at that now. So these are our 4 characters, and I'm going to get started. This will be the first player here, which will be Daniel. And this is his player board. I'll lay that in front so you can see it clearly. You can see it's got these skill dials here. They all, of course, are on 0 right now. And Daniel says, all you need for happiness is a good gun and a good horse and a good wife. Now, they all have the same sets of skills. You got your personality skills, or personality skill, which is, your charm and how popular politically you are. You get your ability to fight with guns and weapons, combat, things like that. Providence is kind of your spirituality, your alignment with God, so to speak. And then you got knowledge, which is education and training. And then frontier, to wilderness skills, your ability to survive and your Indian lore. And then capitalism, your wealth and financial skills. And of course, right now there's 0. And you also then start with a set of these 4 cards to have the character's depiction on them, which are going to be basically action cards that you can take. So you can go on an adventure in one of these areas. So you basically only have 4 actions you're going to do in a given turn. But to start the game, what we do now, we're going to have Daniel, and he has a special ability too, so I'll read that special ability to you. It says, Woodsman, at the start of the evening phase, you may discard 1 frontier skill card from your hand to draw a new skill card. So I don't know how good that is yet, but I get the concept. So we get to replace a card. And then next up, we're going to have Sarah. And Sarah is going to be, she is a devout individual. And you'll see that, we'll see what she ends up looking like. Of course, all their skills still start at 0 until we do our upbringing phase, which will probably be the only thing we do in this session. We'll see. She's devout. It says each time after performing a normal rest action, Sarah may discard 1 to 4 cards and may redraw a number of cards. And you'll see what that means. There's a big giant deck of skill cards. I showed them to you. They're the ones that are warping really bad. And they also have a luck skill. And the luck skill basically comes through card play. That's why it doesn't have a dial. So you'll see how that goes. And then we have Anne. Or Annie, rather, and I think she's, I guess Annie, get your gun. I got a strong feeling somebody's being hustled. It says, Lady Luck, when spending a True Grit token, which are those big metal tokens I showed you, for a new card on the Destiny deal, we'll understand this as we go. You may refuse the first and have a second card dealt. When doing so, you must keep the second card. So that is her. Now, in our last player, and basically all their cards are exactly the same. It's their 4 actions. Okay, we got Thomas. It says determined never to be idle, and his ability is studious. It says start the game with 1 extra upbringing card. At the end of the upbringing stage, choose 1 of the discarded cards to add to your legend. No skills may exceed 4, which is normal. 4 points with the play of this additional card. So he still has to adhere to the starting skill levels of 4. But he gets an extra upbringing card, and this is the upbringing deck. Now, there were some expansions to this, but I'm not playing them. I am simply going to have the upbringing deck in play here. So, again, we're going to go first and do the upbringing stage of the game, and it's only done once. It's just done at the beginning of the game. So this is it right here. We're going to shuffle and deal 5. Then we're going to take 1 card. Each player is going to take 1 card. Now, the only cards I'm going to show you are the ones that Daniel ends up with and looks at, and I won't show you what the other guys end up with until they reveal them. So let's start doing that. I'm going to shuffle and get the cards out, and then we'll get right back to it. Okay, well, I dealt those out. You can see there's still quite a bit of those left, so we'll just put those aside from now. And we're going to first look at our own. So those will be the cards for the upbringing cards for Daniel, and we're going to pick one of those, and of course they're going to pass to their left. So to get started, let's take a look. So what do we have here? Well, we have apprenticed to a silversmith. It says candlestick holders were my specialty. I always thought they would light my way to an interesting life. So basically you can see that you'd gain one capitalism skill and two knowledge skill. Okay. Youthful veteran of Indian raids. Okay, this is when it was over, a lot of families had been killed and their homes burned by the renegades. This is a combat of 4. That's really good. That means he would not have to take any more of these. Okay, and then this one is, I discovered early I was lucky at cards in life in general. Never was a card game I couldn't win or given a chore I could not master. Gets 1 capitalism, and then you get 2 of these bonus tokens. These bonus tokens allow you to buy rewards later. I'll show you what that looks like. And then 3 on this is the frontier. I spent my youth hunting and fishing with young warriors, and finally became a son to the chief and a brother to Hunting Wolf. And then last but not least, we have my father served in Congress, in the Continental Congress. Father was seldom home, spending month after month in Congress, but when I was home, he honed my skills to follow in his footsteps. I think we're going to play this thematically. I think that we're going to choose between combat or frontier. Now, the combat, that's a 4. That's about as good as it gets. So I think we're going to take that one. We're going to take this. So this will be our the first one that we take. It says youthful veteran of Indian raids. It's going to give him a bonus of 4, but right now we're not going to do that. We're just going to put it aside, and then we're going to pass our cards to the left, and I'm going to pick for the rest of them, and then we'll see what we end up with. Okay, well, so this is the next set of cards that we got for Thomas. You can see there's another couple big ones in here. This one really good. My family came to America as indentured servants. Get a true grit, but you also get 4, or a grit token, and you also get 4 knowledge. This one's 4 wealth, capitalism, and then this one's 1 capitalism, 1 grit. So I don't know, but this one also has 2 personality and 1 wealth token. But I'm thinking, now remember, we're only going to get 4 of these, so we gotta spread it out a little bit. I think we're going to take this one here, though. Man, that is really nice to have that knowledge, right, or the wealth, and another grit. My family came, yeah, I don't know, guys. Born into a wealthy shipping family from Boston. That's another good one, but that doesn't seem like Daniel. I think we'll do the personality. Seems like he's full of personality. Needs a good wife and all that stuff, right? And wealth. So he's got a little wealth, but he came from indentured servants, so it's not very high. So we're going to take that one, and we're going to move that on to Thomas. Now let me select the rest. Okay, I got our second card of 4. So next up, we got these 3 to look at. It says my parents. Let me see. My parents were actors. We already got some personality, so I think I don't know if I want. Well, we could take this Providence one, but I think we're going to take the knowledge card. 3 knowledge. It says educated at Harvard, so he's well educated before he hit the frontier. Let every student be plainly instructed. Or let's look at this one. It says promise Ma to abide by the good book. Well, that seems thematically better for us, right? It is my last memory of home and my mother, a promise that I reckon would prove difficult to keep. That looks like that's the right card for us. I'm kind of playing these more thematically than strategically, because I really don't know how they impact the game that much anyway. Okay, let me pick. Now that's 3 of our 4, so let me pick for the others and we'll continue on. Okay, now we're down to just a couple of cards left. And you know, we got that, and that. So I think we're going to take this one because it gives us a little more wealth and a frontier, which we should have some frontier. That is, after all, our deal. So basically, we're going to discard this 3 combat one because we already have one that's 4. So we're going to have a good mix, I think. It won't be too high to start off with. And again, I don't know if we're playing this right or wrong yet. And then I'm going to pick for the other ones, and then Thomas gets to pick an extra one, and then we'll reveal them. Okay, well, we're going to reveal ours first. So here's our 4, and we'll see. I'll zoom in so you can see how this plays out. Okay, so first off, we're going to have our first card here. Again, it says, spent 2 years in the frontier as a trapper. Traveling with French trappers, I learned the wilderness and how to trade with Indians. So that one goes down first in our tableau here. And it's going to give us a 1 here on the trapping, on our frontier skill, and 1 on our wealth skill. Okay. Then our next one was the big one. It was the youthful, Indian raids. So we're going to place that here, just like this. Where what we're showing are the stories that take place there, and that gave us a big giant 4 on our combat, our fight. And then we had this one, which says educated at an expensive boarding school in France, and it says my family had some wealth and used it to educate me and courtesy at the king's court. So we get a 2 personality and 1 wealth. So that's going to put our personality at 2 and increase our wealth to 2. It's not bad. And then last but not least, we got the good book one. So that is our starting, basically our upbringing, and that gives us a 2 in our Providence. And now we're going to go on to what's her name? I think her name is Sarah. So here's Sarah. Now she started with, this one says, youthful years were comfortable as we had wealthy relatives in England. It says America was far from our family fortune in England, but wealth has a far reach. So that gave her a 3 in wealth right off the bat. And then this was her zinger card right here. I was raised the child of a firebrand preacher. Paul always said he walked with angels, and when he spoke, it was certainly with the thundering voice of God. So that gives us a 4 Providence. That's her best score, I think. And then it says here, her next one is spent years drifting from place to place, working odd jobs. That makes sense because she's probably fallen around with her preacher father trying to settle somewhere. It says, in my travels I learned common trades, but many more customs that people brought to America. Well, that gives her a 2 knowledge, which is good, and 1 on her personality. So she got a little bit of personality there. She's not all Bible thumping. And then a surveyed a road in Virginia as part of my apprenticeship. That's interesting for a woman, right? The road passed through a lot of fertile farmlands and several miles of wilderness, giving her an additional knowledge, 2 knowledge, putting her up to 4. And that is Sarah. Okay, now we have Annie, and Annie here, she's got a bunch of cards that give her grit. She's going to have a lot of grit tokens to spend. But the first one here is, actually, she's very knowledgeable. It says that my family came to America as indentured servants. You saw that one. I passed on it, but it took us several years. Oh, there's another one that's kind of like it. It took us several years of service to earn our freedom, so we take being free seriously. That's going to give her a knowledge of 4 and another grit token. Then she had this one, pan for gold with Pa in Kentucky. Pa was never very lucky, but we did find some gold after many months of panning. So 1 wealth and another grit token. So it's 1 wealth and a 3rd grit token. We'll see how those pay off for her because her other one has one too. And then this one, it says orphaned at an early age but with a substantial inheritance. I didn't get my inheritance until I was 16, so I learned to be tough. So that gave her another 2 wealth. She's at 3 and another grit token. She took all these ones on purpose just to see how that played out. I decided to do that. She's supposed to be lucky, and she has an ability that uses the grit tokens. Apprenticed to a silversmith, and you saw that one. Candlestick holders were my specialty. I always thought they would light my way in life. So she gets 2 knowledge. Well, actually, that blows it out. She can't get 2 knowledge. She can only get the 4. Man, I made a mistake there, but oh well. Okay, now we're going to go on to Thomas. Okay, so Thomas, the first thing we got here is I discovered early that I was lucky at cards and in life in general. Never was a card game. Now you saw that one. So that is going to give him a 1 wealth. I'm going to put his cards up here, and we get a, I think that's a happiness token, which is the rose. Boom. And I think the other one is a fame token. That's this one here. So we got some happiness and fame in our area there. And then this one here, educated at Harvard. You saw that one. So 3 knowledge, 3. And it really screwed up with Annie. That was not good. And then this one, I became a blood brother to the son of an Indian chief. I spent my youth hunting and fishing with the young'uns. So that was interesting. He took that one, but it gives him a 3 in Frontier. And then spent 2 years as an apprentice working in the printing press of the newspaper. After the first year, I began writing short articles and brought some notoriety. So that's one more on knowledge, which puts him up to the maximum of 4, and then 2 on personality. And then kind of blew this one out too, so we're going to max out, but he had to take the extra card. Father was seldom at home, spending month after month in Congress. This is the Congress card, so it's going to bump him up to a 4 on personality. Now I could have made better selections perhaps, but that's how we started our story. Now, the next step is we're going to start adventuring, and that means we're going to be going on adventures around the board. So I'm going to set that up, but that's where we're going to end this session. Now, one thing I will talk about is one thing I have left to do for the characters before we start is they each get a set of skill cards. I'm just going to show you what these kind of look like. You see that they have a value, and these are going to be played on adventures, and they also have a skill. Now, or an ability. Now, normally the lower the value, this is typical of a lot of other games like this, the lower the value, the higher the ability, the better the ability is. So like if you see a high value, then you'll see a lower ability in some of these, and you can see that, yeah. Anyway, we're going to deal out a bunch of those. I'm just going to cut those so I don't have them tracked. We're going to deal out a bunch of those, okay? But the next thing that we would also do, so there's 7 of those pieces. I'll deal those off camera. Okay, well here are our cards. So you can see this massive 7-point card does nothing but give us a 7 points. This one that says 5 points, the wealth card, can apply to wealth. It says supplies. This card is considered wild. That's what the red symbol is. For American Ingenuity sets, it can be played as part of any American Ingenuity for 5 points. We'll deal with that later. This one is all for the Providence. Then we got this 2-1 that specifically can only be used here for this. It says newspaper editor, discard when gaining any reward from an adventure to gain an additional fame token. And then a big combat card. So these are our cards. Big whichever one is, personality card, and then a luck. This is luck, so this can be used in a lucky type situation. Well, we'll get to that. I'll explain how all that works later, but right now we're going to get our adventures set up. Now, we're going to do currently what is called the first part of the adventure phase, called the sunrise phase, where we age or initiate adventures, but not on the first turn. At the first turn, we're just going to put out new adventures, and we're also going to put out these tokens. These tokens alter the event of the card to some degree. So even though you might see these cards again, there could be variabilities to them that that we'll see. And then when we take our actions, we're going to take our token and we're going to place it on an adventure that we want to go to. As we build up things, we can also then claim these rewards. You see they have a cost to them at the top, and tokens, special tokens that we need. We also have these hardship cards, which are bad things. But so we have 3 areas we can adventure in. We have the far west, the frontier, and the back east. And so we're going to start by placing a card out in the far west. So to start, we're going to draw the first of these adventures, and it says Spiritual Benefactor. Influence the first West Coast cathedral to be built in San Francisco. And this gives us +2 basically victory points. If we claim it, it requires 15 combination of the 2. So this could be done, this means it's done as a solo adventure, I believe. Yes, this is a solo adventure. It means only one person can go on it. And this is the reward for that adventure. Now, it says you gain +1 skill. That has to be one of the skills demonstrated there. And then you also see you get 2 happiness tokens, a status token, which is the bell, and another or a status token and a happiness token. So you get to choose between the 2. And if you fail, you're going to have to take a card, a negative effect card, for one of the 2 symbols that you see here. So this is going to go right here. And then we're going to take one of these tokens here at random, and it's going to go right there. Now, when we get to here, we will reveal that token. If this gets up to here and we haven't completed it yet, then we have some additional effects. So we're going to go on to the frontier now. You notice thematically that this was a adventure that's happening in San Francisco in the far west, so this one's going to be more wilderness based. Now this is a group adventure. It says the officer in the war, we were an officer in the War of 1812, fight against the British once more, but this time for territory rather than independence. You can see that it requires a combat of 60 total amongst everybody participating, and it says re-enlist as an officer in the War of 1812. Now, when you do a group event, the person that has the highest total is going to get to pick first. You see there's 3 different rewards that you can get. So the first one's really good, and then of course it gets weaker as it goes. Now if there's 4 people that participate in this and succeed, the lowest one won't get a reward on this because there are only 3 available. However, if they all fail at this, then it's going to give some negative penalties. And that's going to go here, and then once again we're going to randomly take a token and put it there. Okay. Now we're going to go to back east, which is basically civilized lands. These are all the bad cards that are related to skills, and we'll draw those too. It's too bad the cards are kind of flimsy because the card art and the effects and everything are really well done. Okay, so this is, again, a solo adventure. I mean, only one player can attempt it. Now, multiple players can attempt it, but it must be completed in a solo experience. In other words, you can't group your cards together. And the one that gets it first is the winner and gets the reward. Architect and Master Builder. So it's a competition, in other words, if more than one player gets on it. Architect and Master Builder of the White House. So it says, yeah, the same thing. Work on and present your grand plans for the White House. This requires 60 knowledge and gives you +1 to your knowledge skill plus these 3 tokens. It's also worth 3 victory points, and if you fail, it gives you a negative knowledge effect. Now, you notice that the symbol, the whatever those wheels are called, symbols, they're called. Got to remember what they're called. Anyway, they're these event tokens. You notice this one's here on the first one. So this one's special. We're going to draw one, and it's going to go face up right there already. So we're already going to know what this is. And it says, if failed, double the failure penalty. So, man, we do not want to fail that one, whoever goes there. And so that is going to be the basic setup of the board for our first sunrise phase. Now, the next session, we're going to get into the daytime phase, which is all the adventuring pieces, and we'll get to go on some of these adventures and play our skill cards and use our skills. Again, heavy storytelling game. It should be interesting to see. I like I've seen these mechanics played out in different ways before. So now there is a couple. You see, we've got still more of these metal coins. There was also a die that came with an expansion. This is one that's called the Bounties expansion. I also have this. There's also a bunch of other characters in the box, and don't look at this. Don't look at this. I don't know what that is. Darkest Night, second edition. I don't know what that is. And then there's a lot of tokens and stuff that we can do. So I look forward to playing this for you guys. It'll be fun next time. We did the first part. We got our upbringing set, and now we just have to play out the adventures for our heroes. So guys, thanks so much for watching, and thanks for subscribing. I hope that you enjoy this game. I think it's going to be one of those games that's underrated because of the way it came out. And it is, to me, it feels a lot like a typical creative storytelling Richard Lanius game. So I'm excited about it, and I hope you are too. Well, we'll talk to you soon, guys. See you in the next episode.